Oops.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the second in our webinar series. I'd like to introduce Ken Naas, who's one of our Career Center counselors or advisors.
Career advisor.
Career advisor. Ken will be talking to you about networking and all that encompasses. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks everybody for joining me in today. I see there's a few people on so far and more will probably be joining us. So hold on just a second, I'll get this up and going here. Okay, so as Polly mentioned, I'm here to talk about networking, but it's not just LinkedIn, which I just pulled up here on the screen. Can people see that? Make sure that we're up and going. Okay, so the reason I'm going to talk a lot about LinkedIn is because it is one of the top networking tools out there online these days. But I did bring in some old-fashioned networking items here. Some of you may know these. These are called Rolodexes. I have 3 of them here, Mama, Papa, and Junior. I still use Rolodexes quite a bit, believe it or not, because to me the best form of networking is actually in person. So when I go to conferences or I'm on campus or I'm meeting employers, I'm getting business cards and I'm literally writing on the back of the business card the date I met the person, what I want to do, well, where I met them, and the action item I'm going to take. I'm going to get a hold of them and tell them how to post positions at Chico State's Career Center, or I'm going to send them information about our interview rooms available on campus, or I'm going to send them an invite to a career fair coming up. After I do that, then I check it and I date it again saying that I completed that step. And it sounds very simple and low tech, but it shows the people on the other end that I'm actually following through with what I said I was going to do. And in this day and age, a lot of people don't follow through. And just today I had a student send me a message on LinkedIn, and she's not a student, she's an alum. She's just back from New Zealand, had a great time on a position she had over there, but now she's trying to get employed in California. She said she's applied to 70 different employers, and she's gotten 0 responses. So as I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of people don't come through. They don't get back to you and say, unfortunately, you didn't get hired. And one of the reasons is they have a huge stack of resumes. So really the networking piece becomes crucial, because if you just think you can hit a mouse button and submit a resume and you think you're done for your job search or your job application process, that's really just the beginning. In fact, I believe that you should be networking way before you ever submit your resume. And what I mean by that is that you are getting to know the employer and doing your due diligence about where you're planning to work months before you even apply to them. So if you're going to write a cover letter, for example, you could have already researched the company, found out the main reason why you want to work for them, and explain in that cover letter why it is that you are a good fit for that company and that actual position you're applying for. I remember in 2008, 2009, we were hitting some of the roughest times in U.S. history as far as job outlook. I was finding that a lot of people were doing the shotgun approach to applying. They were saying, well, Ken, I don't really care where I work. I just need a job. And the economy is so bad, I'm just applying everywhere. Well, there was a problem with that technique, because I talked to employers quite a bit, thousands of them, and they were telling me, Ken, these people are applying for positions that they're not qualified for. So really what they're doing is they're wasting my time, because I'm reading their resumes and there's no fit to the position. So then I started telling my students and alums, we really need to be careful for what positions we're applying for. And I also thought that my value and the value of the Career Center would be lessened during the recession, because the employers would have so many applications they wouldn't care to talk to us too much because they already have enough apps. But actually the reverse was true. They told me we were of more value because we were screening some of those applicants by talking to them and discussing the positions and the employer, so they were more educated job seekers. So it was kind of nice to know that we're still very valued here at the Career Center. The Career Center at Chico State has gone through quite a bit of progress over the years. I actually graduated from Chico in 1980. And back in 1980, we didn't have the extensive services that we have today at the Career Center. We now have 13 interview rooms. We do a number of career fairs per year. We do a professional etiquette dinner. We do a professional networking social. And a lot of alums out there don't realize that we provide services for alums. And this is one of the opportunities today to be invited to this webinar. But also you can set up a phone appointment with one of the career advisors no matter where you are in the world. And with Skype capabilities now and this technology we have right here, we can really interact pretty well with our alums all over the place. When I looked at the list of folks that were potentially going to be coming today to this webinar, I realized that the stretch of alums, there's one or two people I think are actually older than me, which is, they're quite seasoned out there in the work world. And then on the other end, we have people that are registered for this webinar who are still at Chico State and are students, and they're not even graduating till a year from now or a year and a half from now. So when I thought about this presentation, I thought this is a little tricky because the difference between a recent or a student who's about to graduate and looking for their first entry-level career position versus somebody who's been out 30 years, that's a very different dynamic. And we can help both and everybody in between, but that's why job searching is an individual thing. It's not one size fits all because everybody is unique. So that entry-level position sometimes can be really difficult because most of the positions posted are 2 to 5 year experienced. And most students say to me, Ken, how do I get 2 years if I'm just graduating? Where do I get those 2 years first? And that's when we talk a lot about internships and getting some field experience before you actually graduate to help you. But the 30-year out person is going, hey, I'm starting to get gray hair. People are young and they have all the tech skills. It's all about tech these days. There's no room for me as a 50-something-year-old. Well, that's not true because you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of connections and a lot of worldly experience that you can bring to the table for a company or organization. So there just needs to be that discussion so we can strategically plan how to go out and pursue another position. I'm imagining most people, and somebody can pipe in here if they want, most people in the audience are employed, but maybe they're underemployed or they're not as satisfied with their current employment. So if that's your case, then we should talk. If you're unemployed, we should also talk. But those are two different scenarios. And that's why it's really important to discuss this stuff strategically. So with that being said, I do want to jump into LinkedIn here. I'm imagining most people that are watching this webinar are on LinkedIn already. And if there's somebody who's not on at all, has never been on LinkedIn, or maybe doesn't even know what it is, if you could write into the chat and let me know that, that would be helpful. Because I also, besides graduating in 1980 with a degree in psychology from Chico State, I also came back later on and got a multiple subject teaching credential from here. And one of the things I was taught, and I haven't forgot it, is that you're supposed to know your audience. So Polly was so kind as to give me the background on a lot of the people out there and when you graduated and what you graduated in. But I still don't know if people are new to LinkedIn, they're seasoned LinkedIn users, or where they're at on that spectrum. I do LinkedIn seminars about once a month in the Chico State Career Center, and I find that most students and even most alums are on LinkedIn, but they hardly use it, or they don't know a lot of the features about it. So that's one of the things I wanted to touch on today. So for some people, if you've never been on it, it's pretty simple to get started. Most of you are on Facebook, you set up an account, you put in a profile, but we're not talking about a picture with your dog or boyfriend or the red cups or anything like that. We're talking about professional pictures. So one of the things we did as a Career Center is we created a LinkedIn photo booth at the career fairs. So when students come dressed up for a career fair, they can pose in front of the camera and get a nice professional profile picture to put on their LinkedIn. And one of the things I say when I look at different profile pictures, if you don't post a picture, then you get a gray silhouette. And my feeling is most people are better looking than that. So I highly suggest you put in a photo on there. And I also tell students and alums that if you post less information that's on your resume on LinkedIn, you're going to actually disappoint employers. Because employers are going to read your resume, and if they get excited of you as a candidate, then they're going to go to LinkedIn. If they go to LinkedIn and they find less information, they're going to feel like they wasted their time. But I know a lot of students are just starting to build up their profiles, so I don't expect them to have it fully completed overnight, but I do want them to get more information on there than less. This is where you would go on the LinkedIn homepage, which is basically linkedin.com, and you can, this is the login, but if you want to join, you would click here. It's very easy. It says get started, it's free, and it absolutely is free. I've been on LinkedIn since, I think it was 2006. When I joined LinkedIn, there were about 5 million people on it. Now there's over 238 million, and about 40% of those 238 million people are actually overseas. So it's a very international-based system. It's not just a US-centric system. I'm going to be leaving for Spain and Italy to see my daughter studying abroad in about 3 weeks, and I've already researched alums that are working in Spain and Italy, and I think I'll do a little work while I'm over there. So it's nice to know it's international as well. On my homepage, I know you don't want to probably get too hung up on my homepage, because it's funny, I was talking to one of our other career advisors today, and I said, you know, I teach this stuff all the time, and just like a mechanic who may have a car that's not running real well, or an electrician whose electricity is not working so well in their house, my profile could probably be expanded or extended or whatever. Fortunately, I like my job and I'm not currently looking for a job, but I could even beef up my profile. I did want to tell 2 quick stories about 2 people I know who were passive job seekers, in fact, very passive job seekers. They got on LinkedIn years ago, put a very simple profile up, and went about their daily job. One of them had been out of Chico State for 5 years. The other one had been out of, it wasn't Chico State, but another university for about 20-something years. And both of them were discovered on LinkedIn and offered new positions, and they both switched to a new company. That had very little to do with them seeking out positions. They simply put their profile on LinkedIn and were discovered. So that being said, that was before there were 238 million people. I tell students that if you post your profile today, very doubtful that 238 million people are going to find you today. But fortunately, you don't want 238 million people to find you. But what leads people to your profile? Well, in the case of the 2 people that I'm talking about, they both had some experience, one 5 years and the other over 20 years. So when a recruiter from the companies was looking for them, they were looking for key pieces of information. They were looking for specific skill sets and backgrounds. And so when it matched up, they got a hold of these 2 people and said, we're going to offer you a better position than you currently have. We're going to pay you more money. We're going to offer you a higher position. Something enticed both of those people to switch over to a different employer. So that was kind of interesting, because neither of them were really actively seeking. Like I said, very passive job seekers. My feeling is everybody should always be looking for another job. One of my quotes is, the best time to look for a job is when you really love your job, because you're not going to move unless it's just that wonderful job that falls in your lap, but you are out there listening, looking. If somebody wants to offer me a job paying me 5 times what Chico State pays me on the 5th floor of a building overlooking the ocean in Hawaii, doing something I love, I will gladly put in my 2-week notice. So it hasn't happened yet, but I will listen to those offers if anybody wants to offer that up. So I think everybody should be looking, but of course you're working during your day job. You're not looking for a job during your job. You should be looking at lunch hour, weekends, after hours, right? If you're in the Pacific Standard Time, this webinar is during your lunch hour, 12 to 1. If you're in another time zone, hopefully you've got time off work to do this and it's not interfering with your day job. But I really think that people should just keep their ears open. If you're in industry and you go to a conference or a convention, a lot of times you're going to meet people who are in your same industry who may say, hey, I love the organization I work for, or I love the company I work for. You might fall into opportunities because you're asking questions and you're networking at the dinners and at the events that are happening at the conference. That's a great way to still be in your same industry but meet different employers that hire people within your industry. And the reason I'm saying industry is because, once again, when I looked at all the majors and all the degrees that people got that were going to maybe be at this webinar, it's pretty all over the map. Chico has a large number of majors. When I went to school here, I was kind of surprised at other schools being more specific to specific majors, whereas Chico has a really wide spectrum, from teaching to engineering to a big college of business. But we have people out there who are from health science and liberal studies and recreation and MIS and ag and sociology and music, psychology. We've got alums all over the map here. So many different industries and many different choices of where they want to go. A lot of times too, I tell people, when you're looking for a position and they say there's 10% unemployment in the world, remember if you have a college degree, that percentage is under 5%. And also remember, you only need one position. So it's not as difficult as it may seem sometimes. On LinkedIn, I've already gone into my account here. And one of the things that I noticed, I'll pull up my profile first just so you can see a little bit of what that's about. The profile, there's the photo. Then they give you a section to put in your a little summary, which to me is kind of like a cover letter. And I just heard the other day, I read an article about how much you should write in your summary, and they said less than 2 inches. So this is my first attempt to look at my profile and see, did I make it less than 2 inches? And it looks like I'm right about 2 inches. They don't want a dissertation. They don't want a full page of a summary. They want some information about you. So basically a little short paragraph or so. Then each position that you've had, but not every position you've had. I've had so many jobs you would never want to read them all because my profile would go on and on and on and on. But one other thing adding in that I haven't included here is my favorite job. I'm currently in my favorite career position, but my favorite job of all time was a pedicab driver in Hawaii. So that was a really cool position. But I didn't put that on here. Career advisor, there's my position, and underneath my position, 9 people recommended me at this position. So basically what that's saying is somebody has advocated for me. Somebody has put their picture and their LinkedIn profile next to my career advisor position on LinkedIn. So if you click on that, you can read, like here's Daniel. Daniel was one of my past students. He also went on to become a product manager at Mozilla. So now I know Daniel in 2 different ways. I knew him helping him along his career as a student at Chico State, and now I talk to him as an employer at Mozilla when they have hiring needs. So it's pretty cool to stay in touch with folks that leave here because then they become professionals and then they become contacts for me to help other students get hired and alums. But Daniel wrote a nice little paragraph about me, and so did Joshua, and so did 7 other people. To me, this is really a valuable tool on LinkedIn because I can self-promote all I want, but people can go, well, Ken wants to get hired, so Ken's talking himself up. But if Daniel puts himself out there, he's saying this about me. It's not me saying this. I did not write that. I also didn't pay him for that. So, I think that Daniel, if he's ethical and above board, he's only going to say things that he truly believes because his name, his company, and his profile are attached to mine right there. So one of the first things I would recommend you do once you start developing your profile is get a professor, a supervisor, somebody at work, somebody that knows you pretty well, knows some of your skill set, to write a recommendation for you. The nice thing too is you can ask them if they accept and they write it. It doesn't go live automatically, so you have a chance to edit it. And by that, what I mean is I wrote one time for somebody and they said, Ken, you got my job title wrong. I said, okay, I'll quickly fix that. So they didn't edit it. They sent it back to me. I edited it. Then they posted it on the profile. And you also have the option of not posting on your profile. If you get 50 recommendations, you may not want to clutter up your profile with 50 recommendations. You may want to pick the top 10. So you have a lot of control on LinkedIn, and I think a lot of people don't realize that on settings, just like on Facebook, you can go to LinkedIn and you can make yourself very public, or you can make yourself fairly private. So that's a choice you have, and I would highly recommend that you go into the settings and research that so you know what you can and can't do on LinkedIn. And on the right-hand side of the corner, your little picture of you is up here, and this is where you can go in and manage your account. And here's privacy and settings right here. The reality of that is some people want to be seen by everybody and they want all their information out there. Other people, because of certain reasons, it may be their employer. Maybe their employer has policies and say, you can't post everything about our company online because for whatever reason. So really be careful how you set this up and what you want displayed to the world. I also don't think people, this is my personal view, I don't think people should just take every Facebook friend and put them on LinkedIn or ask them to be on LinkedIn. I don't know if anybody has friends who are sometimes inappropriate, but if you do and they start posting something on LinkedIn, this is a professional environment. This is not a personal thing. I mean, it's personal in the sense it's about you, but it's not about jokes and funny stuff. It's really about your professional life. I kind of joke that on Facebook I have 400 friends, in real life I have 3. You know, it's like truly who are your professional circles of people that you want in here. So then you go down and put, like I said, I don't put all my positions, but I put quite a few. And then this section came in about a year ago. It's called Skills and Expertise. I personally am not a big fan of this section. To me, it kind of reminds me of Facebook, and nothing against Facebook, but get all these little tiny photos. And basically what these people have said is, Ken knows about interviews, Ken knows about recruiting, Ken knows about resume writing, blah, 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 blah. So all they did was they clicked next to a skill saying that Ken Naas has this skill. Well, if I'm a career advisor, I better know something about interviews. If I'm a career advisor, I better know something about recruiting. If I'm a career advisor, I better know something about resume writing. And some of these people have never seen me perform this or don't know me very well and are still clicking now. So how do they know I'm good at it? And so this whole section kind of bothers me. Yes. Holly, thank you. How do you make our profile more appealing to a potential, oh, should I be a little louder? Can you hear okay? There's a question coming in, and it says, how do we make our profile more appealing to a potential employer? Okay, I'm glad you asked that. I'm trying to show you how to build it out, and like the recommendations part I just mentioned would be one way. I'm also going to tell you that it's not so much about trying to be appealing to me as much as if you apply or you're doing your background work, there's a boomerang effect. So once you apply, then companies will automatically, if interested by your resume and your application, then they will trigger back to your LinkedIn profile. So it's not always about attracting them to you, it's about you discovering them, you're applying, and then they're going to go say, what else can I find out about candidate A? They're going to go to your LinkedIn profile. So that's why I said earlier, I think it should be longer than your resume. There's a whole other section here, and I hope I'm answering your question. Another section here called Volunteer Experience and Causes. This day and age, many employers want to see that you think beyond yourself. You think beyond work and school and family in that you get involved in your community. So if you've done community service in any capacity, I would put something in this section. So I've helped out at a couple fundraiser events in Chico and in Mexico, so I put a couple organizations I help. And then down here, this is kind of funny because LinkedIn says causes you care about, and the list is animal welfare, arts and culture, children, civil rights, blah, blah, blah. And so I went through these and said, oh no, I don't care about arts and crafts, I don't care about children, I don't care about civil rights. No, I care about all of those. So I check every single one of those causes. Now, do I get involved with all those causes? No, because there's only 24 hours in a day. But I still care about all those things. And then I put some of the key organizations I belong to, and they can click on those and learn more about those. And then down here I put my education, some other personal interest, some awards, and blah, blah, blah. So enough about Ken Naas. But hopefully you're seeing that you could build this thing out so that an employer is going to go, hey, there's something to this guy. He's not just a career advisor, he also gets involved in his community. Also, he's pretty well networked because if you look at this number right here, it says 500 plus. What LinkedIn did a number of years ago is they decided if you have more than 500 contacts, meaning number one contacts, then they don't put 2,876. They just say 500 plus. So people know that I have over 500 contacts. So if somebody wanted to do business with Chico State or they wanted to recruit here, they go, Ken's pretty well connected, maybe I should talk to Ken because he knows a lot of people. The thing about this is people want to see that you're beyond yourself too, that you know a lot of people, that you're in industry. Another key way I would get people interested in you is joining groups. And joining groups, there's lots of groups on LinkedIn, And for instance, we have a Chico State Career Center group. There's also an alumni group. There's also groups about every conceivable industry you could think of out there in the world group. You can join up to 50 groups at a time, and Ken Naas joined 50, so when he tries to join a new one, LinkedIn tells him he can't join a new one until he drops one of his old ones. But I don't recommend you join 50. For my job, it's pretty imperative to join a lot of groups because I can stay well connected. But most people may join 4 or 5 groups. But I highly suggest you join groups that are dealt with your industry, and also Chico can still be a good resource for you, the Alumni Association, the Career Center, the resources on this campus, even after you leave this place. Okay? How about following companies? That's another one where if you say to me, I want to work for, somebody give me a company name. Chevron. Okay, I want to work for Chevron. I wonder if anybody from Chico State has any connections with Chevron. We go to this company profile, and it's amazing. Of course, Chevron has a profile, but even small little companies in Chico, California have profiles on LinkedIn. I mean, it is so permeated out in the world now that almost anybody who has a business can put up something about themselves and start a little profile. So this tells about Chevron, okay? Interesting what they have on their profile. Oil companies should support the communities they're part of. We agree. So basically Chevron's saying we're not just about oil and gas or oil and solar energy and all the other things we do, we're also about helping communities. So that's part of their PR. Now if you go over here, this shows how I'm connected to Chevron. So this person, this person, this person, and this person, they're all number 1s next to their name. Okay, see that in the far corner there? It says first. So that means that this gentleman and I are connected. We've decided to have each other as first connections on LinkedIn, kind of like friend on Facebook. So if I want to reach Raj, who works for Chevron, click on his profile, I don't have to go out and get introduced to another person, which is typically how LinkedIn works. I can quickly go over to his contact info, click on this, and I'm going to unclick it really fast because I don't want to show off his email to everybody in the world. But it has his email right there because we're first contacts. So I don't even have to really use the interface of LinkedIn now. I could jump over to Gmail or Chico State's email account and just email Raj. Or I could use the old-fashioned technique and pull Raj's business card out of my Rolodex and phone him. I still find a lot of people too. But that's the beauty, is these people are now really easy to get a hold of. Just pulling. Oh, another question coming in. Is it worth it to upgrade our LinkedIn accounts for pay monthly, or is the free version enough? You know, I'm glad you brought that up out there in the world. That is something I meant to touch on when I was talking about it's free to start with. I've been on it, like I said, since about 2006, and it's about 10 years old now. It's actually a publicly traded company. But I've never paid for LinkedIn. I find the free version is pretty strong enough without having to pay. And when you're underemployed or unemployed, having to pay for job-seeking services, to me, that's kind of a difficult situation to be in. Now, that being said, yesterday LinkedIn sent me an email saying, Ken, you can get the premium job seeker version for free for a month. And this is about the 3rd or 4th time I've clicked on it, put in my credit card information because they require that. You get 30 days, but here's the deal. If they offer you for free 1 month, you better cancel it 3 or 4 days before that month ends. Because they tell you that they're going to put it on your credit card if you don't, cancel it, but they also say it takes 2 to 3 days to process. So what I do is I go to my calendar 26, 27 days out and put cancel LinkedIn premium so I don't get hit for a month charge. Fortunately, my interim director at the Chico State Career Center recently told me that she would pay for a premium version for me for the Career Center. So I will be using it on my side to help you so I can actually get more information out of LinkedIn I can pass along to you as alums. So that's kind of cool. LinkedIn has all kinds of levels too, for recruiters, for businesses. Some people pay hundreds of dollars a month for their services. The one I'm on right now that's free for a month, I think it's about $25 a month. But that can add up if you're sitting on that for month after month after month. So good question. I personally, as a job seeker, would probably just stay with the free one. Okay? Okay, so companies. So we were talking about this, and the other thing you can do with a company like Chevron is you can follow a company. So when you follow a company, right here it says following, so that means that Ken Naas is already following Chevron. The cool thing about following companies that you are pursuing maybe as an employer, it'll give you news feeds and tell you recent updates, just like you can see here with Chevron. The Philosophy Day, you might be surprised to see how much common ground we share, blah, 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 talks about Chevron. So now if you're writing a cover letter or you're going to interview with Chevron, you can basically talk about something that's pretty pertinent because it's pretty relevant new information. So what I tell people to do is don't just grab something off their mission statement and try to throw that in your cover letter. That's really a tip of the iceberg. I say find something that resonates for you about that company. My example I use a lot and probably need to come up with a new one, but if I was going to work for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, I would say I want to work for Ben & Jerry's because I love your ice cream, but more importantly, you give 2% back to charity, and I like companies that get involved in their communities and give back. So that's something that affects me. Maybe you want to work at Ben & Jerry's because you're going to make a lot of money, whatever. But put something in your cover letter that resonates for you. Show that company why you want to work for them. A lot of times people in cover letters, all they do is talk about themselves. And the company's going, well, why do you want to work for us? Tell us why we are your employer of choice. And that's something I talk about a lot. And the reason I do that is not because Ken Naas knows a lot. It's because Ken Naas talks to thousands of companies, and that's what he tells them. I mean, they tell us in the Career Center. So, of course, I'm just trying to relay that information back to you so you know what to tell the employer. And also, you might find employers you don't want to work for. Now, I'm not going to go into who you should work for and who you shouldn't, because that's your personal choice. But I think there should be due diligence on your part to look into who you're going to work for, because it's pretty important. If you're going to spend 40 hours plus per week there, you might want to find a good place to work. And not just good place, but I mean a good place that's a good fit for you. I remember when I was working with a lot of computer science students at Chico State years ago, I would get this question: Ken, should I work for Apple, HP, or IBM? And I would say, I've been down to the Bay, and I've been to every one of those companies, at least one of their campuses. And IBM, Apple, and HP are very, very different. I know which one I would choose, but I'm not the candidate. So you guys need to know some about the culture of these organizations, and I will tell you some of the things I've learned about these cultures. Then you can decide which one maybe to fit. Should I add another question, sorry. Should I add my LinkedIn address to my resume? I would say yes, because the easier you make it for them to click that hyperlink on your resume or copy and paste it into a browser, the quicker they can get to your LinkedIn account. So I would say yes. As long as your LinkedIn profile is built out pretty well and you're happy with it as a follow-up. So, I thank you for these questions, though. That really helps. So you can follow companies. That keeps you kind of abreast of what's going on with them. You can join groups. I should back up a little bit because I'm afraid there might be a few people out there that are going, Ken never even showed me how to use LinkedIn from step one. So let's do a search, and let's go to, let's see, what should we search? Let's search people, and let's go to advanced search, and let's go to, I'm going to put Chico as a school, because this is a common thing that I do, and that is I search out alums, because once you've gone to Chico, you usually have a pretty good history here, and you feel pretty good about helping other Chico people now that you're out in the world. So I'll find a Chico person that works at a company that somebody wants to work at. So let's just say, speaking of Apple, let's just put Apple in there. Do we have anybody at Apple who went to Chico State? And we have a choice here right below it. It says current or past. Let's go with current people working at Apple. And then we do the drum roll, and we get 45 results. So right away, within about 10 seconds, we found 45 people that went to Chico State that are currently employed by Apple. That's pretty quick, right? So now you've got Celeste, who's a first contact for me. You've got this gentleman who's a first, this person who's a first. Oops, this guy's a second. Okay, so let's take this guy here, Chris. He's a second to me, so I don't know this person. right? He's a silicon engineering program consultant at Apple, okay? You cruise down here, you find out that 2 of Ken's connections right here, these 2 people, know Chris, okay? So basically we have common people in our lives. So what I do is I pick one of these 2 people, reach out to them and say, could you please introduce me to Chris, because I'm helping an alum trying to break into Apple, and they're trying to learn more about Apple before they even apply to Apple. So this is that background work I'm talking about. It's really not that difficult. It takes time, though. And I really want to say this. I think etiquette on LinkedIn is crucial. And a lot of these people that are reaching out and helping you, you don't need to pay them. You don't need to write them big, long thank you cards. But please reach out and say thank you. Please appreciate them. Another question. Will the Career Center help me with review of my LinkedIn profile? Absolutely. When I finish here, I can give you my contact information, or you can go to the Chico State Career Center website and get contact information there, and we can help. I can review your profile for you. I'd be glad to do that. But this is that background work I'm talking about. And so when I find somebody that I don't know, but they went to Chico, then I scroll down and I find when this person went to Chico, what their major was, and a little bit more information about them. And down here I see that he did, wow, he did a few things. He went to Duke, UC Berkeley, Ohio State, and Chico. He did graduate studies, applied math, and he said attended 1977 and 1985, both before and after receiving my college degrees, originally from Chico. So this guy's been he's got heavy background in higher ed. And, you know, he's been out for a while, so he's got quite a bit of experience. People ask me a lot, too, Ken, do I go to the top? Do I go to veteran people? Do I go to people who just started there? Who should I talk to first? I said, well, it depends. And most people don't like it when I give them that answer. It depends. But it really does. I find with a lot of my contacts, they're not the top people at the companies. They're not even middle management sometimes. They may be somebody who's only been there a year. But sometimes those people are really good contacts because they're fresh, they're excited, they just got hired. So one of the questions to them is, how did you get in the door? You just got in last year. My student who's graduating this year wants to know how to follow you in that door. So give us some tips. Plus, you can also use those entry-level folks to take you up to other people within that organization. Now, sometimes I do know CEOs. I do know, presidents of companies. One day there's a small company in Chico, a software company, and they sent a job description to the Chico State Career Center to post, and I read through the whole description twice, and when I got done the second time, and I'm not real smart, but I've read a lot of job descriptions, I still didn't know what this person was supposed to do on this job. I don't know if anybody's ever read a job description like that, where it's written in a way that's so general and you still don't know exactly what your job duties would be. So I was kind of frustrated, so I went to my Golden Rolodexes, pulled up the president of that company's name, phoned him up and said, hey Jay, what is this person supposed to do for your company? He goes, oh Ken, that's a sales position. I go, well, it didn't say sales anywhere in the description, but now that I know that, that's good. But they needed to know a lot of tech in order to then sell it to their clients. But I thought that was pretty funny because I read job descriptions all the time. A lot of times I'm baffled. And there's usually way more to the job than what's on the job description. So that's another reason to find people that either have the jobs or know more information about those jobs. One of the main things I tell people to do, if you want to be something, if you want to be a nurse or you want to be a civil engineer, I've never been a nurse or a civil engineer, but I know nurses and I know civil engineers. Go to the source, talk to them. What's it like to be in that profession? The ups, the downs, the sideways. Don't sugarcoat it for me. Just tell me what's it going to be like to do that. And not just talk to one civil engineer or one nurse, but talk to a number of them. Most people love to talk about themselves and their careers. Usually you can get an informational interview fairly easily. So I just put that out there. And I think alums are a great resource for that. Do we have any other questions out there in the field? No? Let's see. Okay, so we've talked about profile. Oh, number 2. So with that, I said I don't know this gentleman, Chris. So if I do want to know him, I can choose one of these 2 people. And I can go right here. It says Get Introduced. and then I pop in either this person or this person into that slot, and then I write a quick little message to them saying, could you please introduce me to Chris? This is why I want to meet him. I'm trying to get information about Apple, da-da-da-da. Some people ask me, well, Ken, you've got 2 people here. Which one do you choose? And I am pretty selective. I tend to choose the people that work the quickest for me or know the most information or I'm most closely connected to. Because with job openings, a lot of times it's time sensitive. So if I send it to somebody who sits on it for a month, that may pass up the whole application process. I want somebody who's going to act on this within a couple days, if not at least within a week. Because if they don't, it may be too late to apply for that job. And I find it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've ever invited people to an event and you get a whole bunch of RSVPs the first day, and then like weeks go by and they just trickle in after that. I find LinkedIn the same way. If I put out a request today, most of the time, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, I get responses within a couple days. But then there's those who trickle away, and all of a sudden, a month later, I get a response. So then I start tracking in my head, maybe John's really too busy. Maybe I shouldn't use John as a person to pass along information because he takes a month and I can't wait a month. I'm patient in a lot of ways, but I can't be patient here because my student or my alum needs to get employed. And that information is now stale and it's too late. So I'm not going to, bash John. I have a slogan called Judge and Release, but I would choose other people to talk to instead of him because he's not moving fast enough. So if somebody asks you to do something on LinkedIn, I highly suggest you move quickly because you'll be known as somebody who actually comes through and actually passes along information. If you just want to be on LinkedIn for selfish reasons and never want to help anybody else, I highly suggest you don't join LinkedIn because networking is about a two-way street. You help other people, they help you. Some students say to me, well, Ken, I'm not even in my profession yet. How can I help anybody? I said, well, first of all, you can help the person who helped you by saying thank you, being genuine. Secondly, when you get in your profession, you could turn around and start helping the people that came up or coming up like somebody helped you. So just remember, it's about exchange of information. I would say I do way more giving than receiving on LinkedIn, by far. I really give out a lot of information and connect a lot of people, and I'm not really expecting a whole lot back. And I think that's kind of the true essence of networking. You don't do it just to get something. You do it because you're helping people, and by the way, you benefit because you're going to get information and get things coming your way. But if you strictly go in just to get back, you're always thinking of me, me, me. I don't think that's a good attitude to have, personally. I actually went to a seminar one time, a networking seminar, and this woman hired as a consultant said, when you go into a room of 100 people, you should always get on your brain to come out of there with at least 3 contacts that you're going to follow up with. And I sat there thinking to myself, do I do that? And I said, no, I don't do that. So we all have a choice how we network, but when I go in a room of 100 people, I may come out with 0 contacts to follow up on. I may come out with 100. I have no idea. So I'm going in just not knowing what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to a bunch of people, and then I'll find out if my Rolodexes are getting more filled up or it was just a good time and there's no real business to be had here. But I don't go in with a mindset of I'm going to have this in my head as recipe for what's going to happen in this room. But that's different styles. She literally had that in her head. I'm going to choose to make sure I've got 3 people. I just don't operate that way. So I do want you to be yourself. I also went to a workshop where a young guy, quite a bit younger than me, probably half my age, was talking about when you're in the bank line, turn around and introduce yourself to the person behind you and find out what they do for work and find out where they live and find out what they love to do for hobbies and all that stuff. And he's going on and he knows thousands of people like I do. And at the end of the night, there were about 400 students in the BMU auditorium. I started asking students, do you think that you need to be a super connector after hearing that guy speak? And the students were like, yeah. I said, well, guess what? You don't have to be. But you know what's really valuable? Knowing super connectors. Because some of you are very shy, and when you're in the bank line, the last thing you're going to do is turn around and talk to a stranger behind you. So know people that are super connectors because they can connect you to a lot of people, but you don't need to be somebody different than who you are. If you're shy, don't go out there and jump out in the street and start introducing yourself to everybody. But know people who know a lot of people because they can help you. I talk about a circle of advocacy, and that is when you're looking for a new career transition, find people who are going to assist you, meaning people in your profession, meaning professors, meaning career people. And a lot of times sometimes it's not like family members. Sorry to crunch on this one right before Thanksgiving, but in my circle of advocacy for my career, my mother's not in my circle because my mother has other aspirations for me that I don't want to pursue. But she supports me and she loves me, but I don't choose to ask her for career advice. So I think choosing those key people, and a lot of times I would say keep that number fairly small. Sometimes you can get paralysis by analysis. One person tells you to go left, one person tells you to go right, one person tells you to stay in your current job and take the safe route. Find people that are really going to support you and not naysayers. Oh, you're never going to be able to get that job. You're never going to be able to get promoted. You're never going to find a job in Seattle. Or the weather's terrible, don't move to Seattle. So find those people who really support you and surround yourself with them. Other questions out there? It doesn't look like it. So we've got about 15 minutes, so we don't have to take up the whole hour, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer more questions. The LinkedIn, I tell you, if you just get in there and start working with it, I think you're going to find it's fairly easy to navigate. I don't think I have a lot of tricks, but I think the one trick I do have is really asking key questions and getting information to help you be a better prepared candidate when you apply. Okay? Okay, I got a question in here. What should my profile picture look like? Okay, so pretty much a headshot, a little bit, from the here up, and no dogs, cats, boyfriends, girlfriends. Like people do that. They put other people in their picture, or they put part of another person they're holding. You got the arm around them. You really want to just it's you and a fairly close-up shot, smiling, professionally dressed. You don't have to be dressed to the hilt, but look nice. You don't want to be in there in sweats and a hat on backwards or something. Okay, I think we're done with questions unless somebody's got some before we finish up here. Oh, there's another one. Are there other online networking options besides LinkedIn I should consider? Excuse me, I'm glad you brought that up because actually there's a lot of them. I could send you, if you want to email me, I would be glad to send some information out on other professional networking sites. When I used to do the professional professional networking seminar at Chico State's Career Center, I used to talk a lot about the other professional networking sites. But what happened was LinkedIn kept growing and expanding. It's kind of like, do people talk about MySpace anymore? No, they talk about Facebook. LinkedIn is so far ahead of the other professional networking sites that I tend not to use them because I have trouble keeping up with my own contacts. And if I have to check 3 or 4 or 5 different systems and the messages coming in from different systems, I am not going to be able to meet with students and alums during the day because I'll be so busy on social media. So I pretty much stay on LinkedIn, but there's Plaxo, and there's Friendster, and I could probably name 10 or 15 of them. LinkedIn has 238 million plus. Second place is probably 20 to 30 million. So as far as breadth and depth, those other ones are lagging behind significantly. But yeah, there's lots of other ones out there. And I don't believe that you should just use social media or professional media to do your job search. Like I said, the reason I brought in these Rolodex is because to me the #1 way to network is in person, not through a computer. But the beauty of it is I can meet people all over the world through this system. So take the opportunities of meeting people in many different ways, including the computer, but also in person. How much info should I have about each job in my profile? Okay, so it's kind of like a resume. If you have a career position, you're probably going to put 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets underneath that. If it's a position you had back in college, you may put 1 bullet, or you may just name the position that you had. So it's a hard question to answer in that can really vary, but I would keep it pretty short but significant. And I know that's kind of weird. I know when I first started looking at Twitter, I was like, 140 characters? What can you say in 140 characters? But being concise and impactful at the same time is a skill. So if you have 3 or 4 bullets that really get across what you do and how you do it, then it can be impactful. Most students that I meet with tell me what they do in a job. They don't tell me how they do it. So if you tell me how you do it, that's a transferable skill. I do it with efficiency. I do it with strong attention to detail. I do it collaboratively. I do it effectively. I was successful in the fundraising event. We raised $10,482. Those are concrete examples of something I can grab onto. But if you just say I'm really good at something, or I say I did something, I did fundraising. It's not enough. What happened with that fundraising? Was it successful? Give me some signs of that success. Put that in there. So that's a little tough one. I would say on that one too, just individually, I look at a resume or I look at a LinkedIn profile and I would assess whether I think you're telling me too little or too much about each position. Okay? Other stuff? Okay. Do you want to say goodbye to them all, Polly? Okay. Thank you so much for being with me today. If you have follow-up questions, Chico State Career Center, my email is knaas1@csuchico.edu. And you can also go to our website, which is csuchico.edu/careers. Thanks so much. Should be a quick off button. Okay, where'd the hand go? I just hope I didn't realize it.